Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Riverwood Conservancy's webinar series. This is our third Healing with Nature webinar with our friends from Peel Psychology and Therapy Center. It's been, I think, probably a year since the last one, and all new people are joining us, which is awesome. Just so that you all know, we are recording this program. However, your visuals will not be recorded. So if you do want to turn on your video, they will not be recorded. It will just be the four of us speakers. So I'm just opening the chat here. And my name is Stephanie. I'm the Community Program Coordinator at the Riverwood Conservancy, and I will introduce our other three speakers in just a moment. And before we get to our presentation, right now on your screen, you should see the calendar of events for May. So please check these out at the riverwoodconservancy.org/events to register. Anything in yellow you see is virtual webinars, and anything in green is in person. And even more exciting, our June schedule just went up today, and all of it's green, so all of it's in person, which is super, super exciting. So check that out on our website before those events fill up. Lots of new and unique programs in June, including evening talks in Chapel House, which we're bringing back, forest bathing in both English and Cantonese and Mandarin actually as well, which is super exciting. That's something new, astronomy night, and we have yoga events coming back too. So check us out on our website. And before we get to our speakers this evening, the Riverwood Conservancy would like to acknowledge that the land on which we operate is the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, Wendat, and Haudenosaunee nations. Today, this place is still home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to not only live, but work on this land. I am going to stop sharing so that you can see our speakers' lovely faces. We have three speakers with us tonight. First, we have Salma Abdalla, who is a recent graduate from the University of Toronto Mississauga, where she specialized in psychology and minored in education studies. She is currently an intake associate at Peel Psychology and Therapy Center, and is an aspiring psychologist. Salma aims to enhance the well-being of our community and the leading principles of empathy, vulnerability, and cultural sensitivity. So welcome, Salma. We also have Stuchi Patel, who is a recent graduate with an honors Bachelor of Science, specializing in psychology and minoring in biology from the University of Toronto Mississauga. She's currently an intake associate as well at Peel Psychology and Therapy Center and hopes to pursue graduate studies in clinical psychology or research. And lastly, we have Megan Weise, who is currently a fourth-year honors student at York University, double majoring in psychology and criminology. She plans on pursuing graduate studies in clinical and counselling psychology at the University of Toronto with the goal of becoming a psychologist. She became an intake associate with Peel Psychology and Therapy Center to gain a vulnerable experience in the field of psychology. So welcome to our three other speakers this evening. It is so lovely having you all here with us. And I am excited to present our third Healing with Nature with you all. So I will hand it over to you guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Welcome, everybody. It's really nice to see all you guys. So yes, today it's a collaboration webinar with Riverwood Conservancy and Peel Psychology and Therapy Center. So it's really kind of mixing and integrating the idea of mindfulness, which is kind of our specialty, and nature, which Riverwood definitely specializes in. So we'll definitely see how both of these topics can complement each other and be integrated together. So just to begin, we wanted to give you guys a little more information about who we are at Peel Psychology and Therapy Center and what we do, if any of you guys are interested and haven't really heard of us before. So just to give you kind of like an introduction to us, there are a few of us here today hosting with Stephanie, but there's a lot of us behind the scenes, both volunteers, placement students, and clinicians that kind of run our services in the background. So we are located in Mississauga, and we are a group of culturally diverse psychologists, psychologists, psychotherapists, and social workers who specialize in the provision of psychological and therapy services. And in terms of the services we do offer, all of our team members have extensive experience in the provision of psychological assessments, treatment, and counseling services for all age groups, from children, teens, and adults. And we provide comprehensive services for individuals, couples, and families. Unique to this practice, we provide services in many languages, including English, Arabic, Kikuyu, Hindi, Japanese, Korean, Punjabi, Swahili, Urdu, and Vietnamese. So now that we've introduced us, we'd love to hear from you guys if you guys are comfortable in kind of having your voice heard or through the chat, whatever you guys prefer. Just as a little icebreaker activity and to introduce you guys into both of our topics today, nature and mindfulness. So we have two kind of icebreaker questions for you guys. We'd love to hear your feedback on them. So in terms of the nature aspect of our presentation, we love to hear what your favorite outdoor activity is, just in time for the summer. Or if you guys would rather kind of choose or prompt about mindfulness, or both, we'd love to hear about what being mindful means to you and how you would define it, or what comes to mind when you think of mindfulness.
I can share. I do see, actually, Taya said hiking and kayaking. I love kayaking. It's a lot of fun. I was going to say my favorite outdoor activity is definitely birding, and especially right now. And Derek has said the same thing, bird watching. Lots of bird migrants that are coming back to Riverwood and different natural spaces. So that's probably my favorite thing to do right now.
I know, definitely with the weather right now, like it's not as exciting as all of your answers, stargazing for sure. Mine is just honestly just taking my dog on a walk, even though she's a beagle and she gets loud with her howling. It's still enjoyable somehow. But yeah, for sure, there's honestly like endless things to kind of point out about what you can do in nature and outdoors to really, help your physical and mental health. So that's what we really get into today in terms of mixing nature and mindfulness together. Alrighty, so that's perfect. So in terms of now going into our presentation, now that we've introduced you guys to our main topics, we'd love to hand it over to Stephanie, Salma, and Stuchi to give you more information on how you can kind of integrate mindfulness into your nature activities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan, and thank you everyone for sharing with us what you'd love to do in this beautiful weather, and we hope to talk about some more examples later on in our workshop as well. So why are we talking about mindfulness today? And why are we talking about mindfulness in nature? So what we're going to be doing for this specific portion of the workshop is to explore the impact of mindfulness and spending time in nature on our well-being. And we'll also talk about some of the research that has been done in this area to really give you just a holistic idea of why this is an important topic that we should all be talking about as well. Awesome. So a big aspect of mindfulness is being present. And when we talk about being present, we're talking about our 5 senses of sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. In nature, we have this opportunity to really utilize all of our senses. So I can think of a few examples using, for example, our listening to hear the birds chirping, feeling the grass, tickling the bottom of our feet as we're walking on the grass, seeing the abundance of colors and trees and the plants around us as we're walking through the park, like Shadow mentioned, or when we're stargazing, we're noticing those sparkling stars in the sky. Can anyone think of a few more examples for smell and touch? You can put that in the chat for me as well. And Stephanie, feel free to chime in as well. What can we do with our smell and touch in nature?
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that later on, but one of the biggest things that you'll notice is when you go out in nature, it smells different than if you're just walking down the street, especially right now in the summer and the springtime. our plants actually release these chemical, they're kind of like pheromones, and it makes you feel good when you breathe them in. It smells really nice. And it's what like our essential oils are made of, right? All those essential oils that you'll put into diffusers, they're made up of the chemicals that plants give off. So stuff like that, that's a really, really big one. In terms of touch, I'm also going to be saying this again later on, but you'll notice in the wintertime, it almost feels harsh on your skin. And that is definitely a touch of nature, right? But when we go outside right now, it feels really calming, and you don't get that harshness of the air on you. So
and I love what you just mentioned, Stephanie, about that touch of nature. We don't think about it that way. We don't think about touching nature and nature touching us back. It's almost like a personal relationship that you have with nature, and that's about being mindful because you're developing that relationship, and that's really important. I see also some examples here in the chat, feeling the wind on your hair, especially the warm breeze. Yes, Megan, that's an amazing feeling. The smell of rain. I know that rain is one of my favorite kind of feeling, or to hear rain and to smell rain is such a calming experience for me. And I also resonate with that smell of once you step foot in nature and just inhaling that fresh smell, it's a different experience. So thank you all for those examples. So what I really want to emphasize from these examples is that in these various moments, nature is actually helping us ground ourselves in the present moment and deepen our connection to the outside world. So we're not so stuck in some of the intrusive thoughts or some of the thoughts that we're having that are kind of giving rise to some feelings that are not so pleasant. We're actually engaging with the world around us, and we're allowing the world to engage with us. And that's the really important piece of having that relationship with nature. It just enhances our awareness to the outside world. And we see this during the pandemic when everyone, their self-care was to go in nature and to have that moment to interact and have that awareness of the outside world. It's almost that when we lose that experience is when we cherish it even more, is when we appreciate it a little bit more. And in this specific context of, the summer and the beautiful weather, we should take advantage of those moments and really engage with nature to reap all the benefits on our mental health as well. So in these ways, this is how mindfulness and nature can actually enhance our well-being, is when we think about the five senses and incorporate our five senses in our interaction with nature. And I'd love to also hear more examples from you, Stephanie, if you have another example about using our five senses, perhaps for sight. I know you mentioned one for smell and touch. What about for sight or for our sense of hearing? I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, for sure. Sight, obviously the colors right now is a big one. And especially in the past, I think 3 or 4 days, the leaves, all of a sudden, they're just huge and the tree canopy has just filled in. And I actually realized driving up the driveway to Riverwood the other day, I was like, wow, this is like a totally different place. And really sight is a huge one with the colors of the plants and the trees and birds and things like that are very, very colorful right now. In terms of sound, that's probably the easiest one. And we're going to be practicing a little bit of meditation just through sound in a moment, but sound is a huge one too, especially in the springtime when there's birds that are singing very loudly to find a mate, frogs that are doing the same thing at nighttime and singing very loudly in the ponds. I just saw Denise said croaking. Yes, lots and lots of toads and green frogs right now at Riverwood that are very loud. So sounds and those vary during different times of day. So if you go out early morning, you're not going to hear the same things that you'll hear late at night. I see Rachel says crickets at night too. Yeah, so the sounds will change throughout the day. So coming at different points in the day, you're going to experience different things too.
Okay, so now we'll be talking about mindfulness during the day. So a question that I want to ask everyone is, how do you start your morning So what do you do? What are some activities that you engage in when you wake up in the morning? Okay, stretch, yes, definitely. Coffee, yes. Yoga, yes, that's a great way to start your morning. Making the bed, yes.
Looking at your phone, yes, that's a bad one. One that I actually have, Stuti, is it's kind of a weird one, but when I get up, I immediately go out to my balcony and I have a small planter box there and I stare at my plants and I'm like, how much did they grow in the past day? It's very weird, but I'm obsessed with it.
I used to do that when you're initially starting to grow plants. I recently got into gardening, so, but that's a good one. Watching news while having breakfast. Yeah, so these are all great ways to start your morning, but how can we incorporate mindfulness during the start of your morning? So when we start our day, we want to be mindful of, so instead of using a loud noise to wake yourself up, such as like a blaring alarm sound, we want to instead try more natural and calming methods to wake ourselves up. For example, more soothing alarms, bonus points if it's related to nature, such as birds chirping or the waves of the ocean. And so throughout our day, we engage in so many activities, but we forget to take a pause and rewire our brain. So another question is, what are some ways what are some activities that you engage in throughout your day to take a step back and just breathe? Please feel free to unmute yourself, or you can write it in the chat as well.
I think an easy one here for probably most people is go outside. And I know like even if you're not in like working in a natural space, like leaving your computer for 10 minutes and going outside, even if it's in a parking lot, you'll find some sort of nature or like look up at the sky. Getting away from your computer for 10 minutes is probably a good way to kind of refresh your brain and focus again.
Exactly. So I was that is you basically highlighted our next point.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, so getting out in the gardens, especially if there's a fountain or waterfall, yes. Water really has that calming effect. Whenever you go near like the ocean or the beach, you kind of get like relaxed into like a more calm zone. So yeah.
I also, there's on my way to campus for last semester, there's a little waterfall right next to just the end of that trail that I usually take to campus. And I remember during the tough times of, exams or when I'm really feeling that stress, I would just like stand there and listen to the waterfall. And in all honesty, sometimes I would get like teary and I don't even know why. It was just that kind of overwhelming experience of just like being present in that moment was just so necessary to just de-stress. And I didn't even know I needed it, And so, yeah, I think sometimes just taking that step to just stand there and listen and just be present can do wonders, even if you didn't know that you needed it exactly at that moment. So yeah.
Great point, Salma. So we rarely pause between our activities, and as a result, we can carry the stress and tension of a previous activity, conversation, or a train of thoughts over into what we're about to do. And this can have a negative effect. So before setting off on your walk, or take a few moments to maybe allow yourself to come into the present moment and letting go of any thoughts or concerns that might be on your mind. So this usually happens. So sometimes when we're going through, as someone mentioned, during exam time or like during a very stressful period, you're constantly thinking about things, and it's really hard to take care. So during such times, going on a walk and being in the present moment is really important. And so just I know it's kind of evening time, but there is a small activity, which is like a journaling activity. So if you are able to, no worries if you're not, you can do it another time. But so the activity involves just finding something that's nature related, and then focusing. So this, if you're going outside, this could be like pine cone, like flowers, sky, bird, trees, anything that you observe that is related to nature, and just writing a couple of words about what the item makes you feel. So if you're indoors, you could maybe, if you have like plants in front of you, you can just focus on a particular plant and maybe jot down some ideas of how it makes you feel. So yeah. So engaging, so this is basically a journaling activity, and journaling is a great way for us to check in and how we're feeling. Sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. How we're feeling, and so you might use your morning to journal, right? So and reflect on your current emotions, write out your intentions or goals for the day. So one way that I do it is I sometimes do yoga in the morning, and there's certain types of yoga that where they tell you to do deep breathing exercises, and you can just think about like what you're grateful for or what are your goals for today, and that kind of helps you get into the right frame of mind, and it kind of influences how your rest of the day will go like. So journaling is another great way that you can rewire and take a pause throughout the day, just to think about and be in the present moment about how everything is going on.
Thank you, Stuchi. And I also just want to add on to your point here about intention setting. We don't typically think about intention setting in the morning. And I think when we do take that moment of just pause and reflection, especially if we do that in nature, that's also another bonus of just, you know, listening and being there and listening outwards, but also internally is really an important thing that we can try to do to rewire our brain in that morning, right? Instead of waking up to an alarming kind of alarm that, you know, gets us very anxious or stressed in the beginning of our day. So intention setting is a really great point that you just brought up there as well. Thank you. Okay. And now, so, you know, you just went about your day and you're getting ready to just wind down for the day. So it's after work, or you just came back from whatever commitment or obligation that you had for that day. What do you do? I'm sure we all have a couple of things that we do, and I'd love to hear about that from everyone here today. Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, for me, usually in the mornings, I'm very rush, you know, go to work, go to school, whatever it is. So usually in the morning, it's hard for me to kind of, you know, go about kind of mindfulness activities and kind of connect to nature. So actually at night is when I kind of do that. Once I get home, I'm like, I have to go on a walk. I have to get out of the house. I need to do something, which is really different from my family, because for them, you know, they think, oh, you know, you just got back from work. You just got back from school. You'd think you'd want to wind down. But that kind of just shows how important nature is for being able to wind you down and you to kind of, you know, calm down and be ready to even go to bed and have a good night's sleep. So definitely I wind down by having exercise outside and kind of going on a walk and enjoying the good weather for now.
I think you brought up a great point, Megan, as well, because what we are proposing is that you take a pause, but that doesn't necessarily have to be in the morning or at night, right? It has to kind of fit your schedule, and you kind of have to understand, where do I need that pause, or where does that fit into my schedule? Where can I incorporate it? Where do I see myself doing this, right? So if the morning seems like it's difficult to incorporate that, perhaps incorporate it in a place where you can get started at night, or wherever you see most fits in that beginning portion. And then maybe as you get more used to it and taking that pause, and, you know, you're rewiring your brain to be a little bit more present, you can start incorporating that as well in little bit of the difficult moments, right? When you're struggling to be present. So I think you bring up such a great point, Megan. Thank you for sharing. Yes, thank you so much, Rachel, for saying that as well. The stillness and the quiet of the night. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And so another way that we can also incorporate mindfulness in or during the night is to really try to stay away from our phones. So I know that could sound kind of hard when we're have been engaging in this virtual world for a really long time now, and it seems that we have to be active at all times. But as we're transitioning more, outside of this virtual realm, and as we're making our way back into this lovely, beautiful environment here, I think it's important that we are aware of our virtual consumption or our media consumption, and especially around bedtime. And the reason for that is I'm just sorry, I got distracted here. But a reason that it's very useful to just take a step back when we're when it's bedtime is because the phone or the tablet or whatever we're using to get that media consumption can actually disturb your sleep. And so these electronic devices also emit blue light, which affects our brain by making us more alert, and it actually reduces our levels of sleep. So we don't even want to go to sleep anymore. We don't have that restlessness that we usually have around bedtime. So it disrupts our sleep cycle and our ability to fall asleep. So it's important that we just take a step back, perhaps an hour or two before bedtime. Maybe we read a book, or we try to incorporate a different way of kind of winding down, or whatever is most appropriate for you and your context, and staying away from our devices during bedtime or around bedtime. Another way that we can also incorporate this is not forcing it. So I know that when we're trying to be mindful, we're trying to fall asleep or wind down, we have this expectation of ourselves that we can immediately do that, right? That we can, immediately fall asleep, or we can immediately get into this mindfulness state. And if we're not, then something's wrong with us. But I think it's important to just understand and be curious about how we engage with mindfulness as well. So when we are unable to sleep, or when we stop trying to fall asleep, when we're trying to fall asleep, this can actually have an adverse effect and lead to heightened stress levels as well. So it's kind of counterintuitive, right? So practicing mindfulness is through this really creative way of imagining your own fantasy or your own nature fantasy is another technique. And this actually shows, this actually is something that was researched by Willard 2020. So this is a recent research that shows that focusing on your mind on trying to fall asleep can have a negative effect, and the opposite effect of actually falling asleep. And something to do that is kind of different from that is to have a positive distraction that involves your senses. So we're going back to what we just talked about a few minutes ago about using our senses. So the goal is to create this imaginary kind of scenario in your brain about nature. So imagine walking along a beach shoreline, or you can feel the sand on your feet. You can hear the seagulls and the crashing waves, and you can feel the warm breeze. I know I saw some of the examples about feeling that warm breeze on your skin. So creating that and imagining that scene can also have such a positive effect on your ability to fall asleep and your ability to wind down in a really creative and unique way. And that's not usually talked about. We don't talk about how the imagination, or how even just imagining nature, can have a positive effect. So I think that's really important to also consider. And last but not least, which is a very common thing that we suggest, is meditation and breathing techniques. This is a common one, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to follow this, and everyone has to meditate. If meditation does not work for you, or meditation is not your go-to thing to wind down, or you feel agitated more than just settling down, that's okay. You can try something else, right? Perhaps try the fantasy, creating your own fantasy, nature fantasy, and seeing how that goes. Perhaps try to stay away from your electronic devices, and we can brainstorm more ideas. So I want to pass it back to the team and see, what do y'all think? Do you have any other ideas other than the ones that were just mentioned about winding down that we can just think about together right now?
Yeah, actually, when you said about saying goodnight to your devices, that actually really resonated with me, because what I found really helps is I kind of heard the rumor too, you know, and the science behind how bad it is to be on your phone before sleep. So what I've actually done at night that actually helps me in the morning is, instead of having my phone right beside me or easily accessible where I can just grab it whenever I want to while I'm sleeping or kind of laying in my bed, I purposely kind of move it to the other side of the room where I can't touch it. And that not only helps me kind of stay away from it at night when I'm supposed to be trying to sleep, but also when it comes to morning and my alarm is going off, it helps me, encourage me to get up and not just, you know, grab it and hit snooze and kind of leave it for another 5 minutes. So I found that saying goodnight to your devices also helps with the morning as well.
Thank you, Megan. I love that. I wish we all had that, Shadow.
I know.
I know. A zero gravity massage chair. That sounds awesome.
I want to recommend that. I want to put it on the slide right now. Everyone should just go and get one.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Okay, so
sorry, Salma, I think even getting into routine, right? That's a huge one. Like finding your favorite tea and making yourself drink it every night, and putting away your phone, like Megan said, and even just standing outside or sitting on your balcony with some tea. That's a great way to unwind too.
I love that. And just on that note, Stephanie, you just brought it up, and I have to show it, but for this specific workshop, I thought it was suitable to even bring out my flower teacup. And I'm an avid collector of these like really cute kind of utensils, or it's just a leaf and a teacup. And I think when I'm trying to wind down, just even those little items, it's so quirky. But I think just, you know, romanticizing your experience, you know what I mean? And just getting into that mood. And it does wonders. It honestly does wonders. So thank you, Stephanie, for bringing that up. Yeah, I drink my favorite tea in it. So okay, so I'd love to pass it all over to Stephanie to take us through a virtual nature tour, and we'll talk more about why this is also important in terms of accessibility, and if you don't have a nature perhaps right there, or a nature site right next to you. So we'll pass it over to Stephanie for that.
Thank you. Okay. So you can see my screen okay there? Awesome. So yeah, just like Salma said, nature is not always accessible to everybody, and especially throughout the pandemic, that was a huge thing. People could not get outdoors or didn't feel safe being outdoors. Do you see a big blob on your screen right now? No, okay, it's just me. Yeah, so not everybody could get outdoors. And so one of the things that we started incorporating was doing kind of a virtual hike through Riverwood or through different natural spaces. And just by seeing or hearing nature sounds, it has a really big impact on your well-being. There have even been studies about people that have been in hospital beds, and the people that were near windows, they improved, their health improved a lot quicker than people that didn't have windows or were in the middle of a bunch of people. So by just seeing or hearing nature, you don't even have to be in nature. It has a positive impact on your well-being. And this is really prevalent in wintertime. I think a lot of us get kind of the wintertime blues. It's dark, the days are really short. When you go outside, like there's not much nature sounds or smells for you to experience. And also a lot of people don't like the cold, so they stay inside more. And I'm sure everyone in the past couple of days or weeks has experienced like the overwhelming sensation of happiness recently. When you go outdoors, especially in natural spaces, but literally anywhere, it's warm, there's leaves, there's sounds, there's tons of people everywhere, even on the streets or in Riverwood, you see people everywhere and everyone just seems very happy. And that's because we have those different kind of senses that we can connect to. So with the sound, you have the birds and the frogs that I was talking about before, birds early morning, frogs late at night. You have the smells in the air, so the aromas of the trees and the plants, which are just like the natural chemicals that they release, but those smells impact how we enjoy the outdoors, and those natural scents aren't always available in the wintertime. But wintertime does also, I shouldn't be saying wintertime isn't nice. It's still beautiful. It's a different kind of beautiful. It's silence and a different kind of smell and a different kind of feeling. But I'm just trying to connect to spring and summer right now. And then touch. Yeah, so you can touch the grass, you can touch a tree, you can experience nature with your hands in the summertime, but also how the weather feels on our skin. That's a touch as well. So sometimes the cold can feel very harsh. I'm sharing this video and it may be very blurry because I actually took it straight from Instagram, but this video was taken literally 3 hours ago at Riverwood by a visitor. So somebody that was walking, it looks probably on Cullum Trail, and this deer didn't seem too concerned at all with this person, probably because they were being mindful and quiet and walking slowly. And the deer let him just sit with them for like 10 minutes, and it was just chomping on some leaves. So you can see how just by wandering during different times of the day, it can kind of impact what you see. Ooh. Okay, so on that note, I will be leading a short virtual meditation now. I have no training, but we like to kind of incorporate this into our webinars when they have to do with wellness, because like I said, just seeing or hearing natural sounds does have an impact on your well-being. And maybe after this, you can kind of take that away with you and experience it on your own time. So if you would prefer, you can turn off your camera at this portion to join me in a virtual meditation. So as we embark on this virtual guided mindful walk of your favorite natural place, please close your eyes and get comfortable in your seat. Place both feet on the ground, and even though we are indoors, feel the connection to nature. Place your palms faced up, relaxed in your lap. And once again, close your eyes, if you will. Drop your shoulders, sit up straight, and take a deep breath in through your nose. Slowly release. And as you do, imagine your favorite natural space. Where would you like to be right now? Maybe you chose your favorite hidden pond that no one else knows about. The spring birds singing loudly, and you smell the newly thawed water and mud. It isn't a pleasant smell, but it brings you happiness that winter is over. You raise your nose to the filtered sun, and you hear the shrill of the red-winged blackbird reminding us that spring has arrived. Or did you choose to be sitting inside your tent in a campground? You have just finished a long hike through the woods of a provincial park, and now you seek shelter from the ever-buzzing sounds of mosquitoes. Your fingers are sticky from eating marshmallows by the campfire, and as the sun sets in the distance, you hear the haunting calls of the common loon searching for its mate on a silent lake. Or did you find yourself in an exotic and remote location halfway around the world, away from the pressures of work, politics, and the news? You breathe in through your nose to smell the natural aromas of the trees around you. You lean back in your chair and feel the humid warmth of a tropical destination on your skin. Your loved ones sit close to you in silence. You hear the beach in the distance. Or did you visit Riverwood and walk down the trails to see the leaves quickly coming to life, the birds singing in the tree canopy, the toads trilling in the pond, and the bumblebees and butterflies emerging from the frost layer and taking sips of their first nectar available to them? Sap oozes out of the newly cut down tree from the beaver the night before. You find a creek that the beaver has yet to dam, and you find yourself sitting next to it. And now invite you to slowly open your eyes and take a moment to notice how you feel. If you choose to, please share with us where you went and how it made you feel with the rest of the group. You can comment in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Does anyone have a favorite natural space? I know mine that I resonate with in this walkthrough is the sounds of the loons and going camping in the summertime. It's like one of my favorite sounds.
Yeah, I would love to share my experience. I really enjoyed this virtual kind of tour. It just took me right back to my experience during the beginning of COVID, where I wasn't feeling good emotionally or even mentally. And I used to go to Arundel Park. And I remember they had this perfect bench. And I literally thought this is like made for me. Like this is my bench. I would just go and it was right next to the water, the little river. And I would just sit there, listen. And it was the first video that you played, or the first sound that you played, and took me right back to that moment. And I also noticed, Stephanie, which I loved so much, is when you said, sit upright or just sit straight and, lower your shoulders or kind of relax your shoulders. And immediately I just took a deep breath. And I think our bodies that's how we kind of communicate with our bodies. When you get into a specific seating, or you put your feet on the ground, or just moving your body, just put it in a different posture, can just do so much for you. You're naturally just starting to breathe so much more and openly. So I love that. I think it not only enhances your relationship with the outside, but also enhances your relationship internally. I love that, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Salma.
Yeah, one thing I found really interesting actually was when you were going through the different scenes and the different sounds, I found every scenario you would explain, like a different sense of mine would be especially kind of like targeted, and that it kind of like reminded me of my own personal experiences. I like the one about the camp when you said like your fingers are sticky from the marshmallows, like I could kind of feel it in my fingers. And then kind of like Salma said, relating it to personal experience. With the last one, actually, the river sound reminded me of this river that we have near my house. We used to go when I was a kid. So kind of the sound reminded me of that. So it was calming to kind of have it resonate with your own experiences too.
Thanks for sharing, Megan. Okay, thank you everyone for sharing in the chat too. And I think the loons were kind of the winner for the what resonated with a lot of people. So I'll hand it back over to Salma here.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna reshare my screen with everyone. There you go. So we just took you through a virtual nature tour. And the reason why we're really being intentional about this is because we recognize that nature sites might not be accessible to everyone. So you might live in the city, And so you're sitting here thinking, well, what about me? I feel left out. I don't have a nature site. How can I practice mindfulness? Can I still practice mindfulness? And that answer is absolutely. You can absolutely practice mindfulness. And we have some awesome suggestions for you. And I'll pass it back to Stephanie, because I know Stephanie has some good suggestions that she can present to everyone here.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're actually going to be talking about a little activity that you can do if you live in a city like myself. And if you are near Riverwood and have Riverwood accessible, but you want to do this activity right outside your front door, this is still super accessible. So it's about bringing nature indoors by planting native trees. Either you keep those trees, you can give them away as gifts, or you can replant them in different locations. So recently, City of Toronto, and I know Mississauga is doing this as well, they've been planting a lot of native trees on private properties or along sidewalks or in parks to try to it's good for everybody's mental health and well-being to see these trees, but it's also good for our physical health too. It lowers down the heat that is emanating from cities. It allows our water to be cleaner. It does all sorts of different things for our physical and our mental well-being. So it's really important to have trees in urban spaces, but even more important to have them be native so that they can provide something to the ecosystem. What happens with a lot of these trees is that they produce seeds. And what these seeds do is they fall down, as you can see in this image here, they'll fall down in the grass and they'll either go to waste or they'll fall right on the sidewalk or the road, and they'll fall directly on cement and also go to waste, or they're brushed up and thrown away into the garbage. But one thing that I kind of found was a lot of fun, and maybe you won't enjoy it, but we'll see, was to actually go out and collect these seeds that the trees make and try to grow my own native tree indoors. So it's a lot of fun to go to one tree and collect those seeds, learn about that tree, learn about how to germinate that seed in a specific way, because they have all different ways to germinate. And it's really great for kids and families to go out and select a tree and do that themselves, but also it's really rewarding for adults too. I know currently my apartment has many very small sapling trees, and I don't think my partner appreciates it because all of our windowsills are just different species of trees right now because I'm obsessed with doing this. But hopefully you can find enjoyment in it as well. So some of the trees that City of Toronto specifically plants, and I'm sure City of Mississauga does the same, but black oak, white pine, chokecherry, sugar maple, trembling aspen, ironwood, white cedar, yellow birch, hemlock, Kentucky coffee tree. And these are just a few of the tree species that they plant that are native. And you may never have even noticed that there were different kinds of trees along your sidewalk. You may have thought they were all the same thing. So next time you walk outside, just stop and look at the leaf and see if you know what tree that is. And if not, take a picture and try to identify it later, or look on the ground. So I'm going to be talking about two specific trees that I love to grow myself. The first one is called the Kentucky coffee tree, and I'm wondering if anybody in the chat has heard of this tree before or seen it. These are actually pretty common along sidewalks. They're pretty resistant against pollution, and they do pretty well in kind of spaces where there's cement on either side. So they have these long kind of bean-like seed pods. And this is kind of how you first identify them. So in the wintertime especially, they don't have any of these leaves. They don't have anything on the tree. All you'll see hanging from them is these big bean pods. So that's what you'll kind of look for. And when those fall on the ground, they do have seeds inside the bean pods. Now, just warning you, the bean pods themselves, they have like this gooey green stuff inside, which is not fun by any means. But inside, there's some really cool seeds, and I'll just show you here. And they are like these little brown, they kind of even look like little coffee beans. So they're these little brown seeds, and this is the start of a tree, surprisingly enough. So what you're going to do with these little tiny seeds after you kind of taken out all the gooey stuff out of the seed pod is you're going to do something called scarification. So some seeds need to be, their shell actually needs to be cracked open. The actual seed pod is on the inside, and this is so in nature, like an animal would be chewing on the seed and break open the actual hardness of it, and then they maybe plant it in the ground like a squirrel, and that's how the tree actually germinates and starts to grow. So something that we have to do if we want to plant these trees or grow them ourselves is we have to do something called scarification. Some people will use like a filer and they'll file down, but that might take a very long time. What I do, you have to be very careful, but what I do is I actually hold it and I get a sharp like knife and I just kind of cut a little slit in the seed. Once again, being very careful because they're slippery and they're round, so they might pop out. But just do it slowly and hard, and then break that kind of very hard layer on the seed. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put it in some water overnight. You're just going to leave them in there overnight. And this is what they look like when you wake up the next morning. They're very gross. I don't know why they do that. But viable seeds will have kind of expanded, so they'll actually kind of double in size, and they'll look all hairy and flaky, kind of like they got a sunburn. And what you'll do is you'll actually just clean it off. You don't have to worry about getting all of that white flaky stuff off, but just give it a good clean. And then all you do is you put it in some soil and you leave it, and in a couple weeks, you'll see your first little nub coming out. And I'll show you mine that really needs to be planted in the ground, but this is my, you can kind of see, this is my baby Kentucky coffee tree. And it's actually, this tree is actually pretty old. I need to replant it. It's kind of done growing. So it's been like this for actually like probably 2 or 3 months in the same state. It hasn't grown anything else, because trees, when they, or plants in general, when they don't have more space to grow, they kind of just stop where they are. So this guy does need to get planted somewhere eventually. So if you're looking for a Kentucky coffee tree, I got a couple. So that one's kind of a really cool one, because it's not just like you throw a seed in some soil. There's an actual process, and it feels really rewarding when you get it right. Another very easy one, and one we see literally everywhere, there's hundreds of these on the ground, is acorns. And, you know, you don't have to go to a park to actually get acorns. If you go outside your front door right now and you go for a 10-minute walk, you'll find an acorn somewhere. And all acorns will turn into a different species of oak tree, depending on what that actual acorn looks like. So the process is a little bit easier for that one. Collect as many seeds as possible, because a lot of them aren't going to be viable. Bugs will get into them. Different rodents love eating them. Squirrels, chipmunks, all sorts of things will eat them and not make them viable anymore. So collect as many as you possibly can. Throw them in some water. And then in the morning when you wake up, same process. Viable seeds will actually be at the bottom of that cup of water, and then seeds that are not viable or won't grow, they'll be floating at the top. So ones that have bugs in them or just didn't work out. Then you plant it in some soil. You can cover it over completely or not. And then keep it in soil indoors until the tree is slightly larger than this one. So I have a little oak tree that I grew as well that is about that size. And I say keep it indoors because, as we talked about, our squirrel friends love to eat acorns. So if you do plant these directly in the ground outdoors right now, some squirrel's going to just dig it up and eat it, and it's going to be gone, and you're going to be standing there for months waiting for this thing to pop out of the soil, and it's actually just eaten somewhere else. So plant it indoors first until it gets kind of its roots to it, and then plant it somewhere safely that you don't think is going to get run over, like that size. And the last thing I was going to show you, if you didn't want to pick anything off the ground, I also have a huge plant here, and this is actually an avocado. Surprisingly enough, if you like avocado plants, you can also do the exact same process. You clean off the outer brown shell, you put it in some soil or even just in some water, and it will grow roots. And then it just needs a sunny window. And then in 7 years to 10 years, you'll get an avocado. If you're that patient, it's a long time. But you could have your own avocado plant. And yes, Salma, saving some money. It's going to take some while, but you will eventually save money. All right, so that's my activity. I'll stop sharing. And I wonder if anyone has any questions or if we want to do a quick debrief on what we talked about today.
Absolutely. I can pass it over to Megan as well, and she will guide us through a reflection just to kind of incorporate what we all learned today, and to have some time for yourself to see what stood out for you and what resonated for you.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of looking at everything that we kind of learned today, day, night, or just in general nature and mindfulness activities, we'd love to hear about what your favorite takeaway from today was, or what specifically stuck in your mind that you heard us talk about today, or ways that you can incorporate mindfulness into your life, whether it's something favorite that we've mentioned or something else that you kind of thought of or currently do that you'd like to share as well. If you want to either use their microphone or chat, either one works.
I think a big one that I learned was actually from something Salma said, and that was just when you talked about just sitting in places, like you said, in front of the waterfall at your campus, or sitting at a bench at Arundel. A lot of times when I go outside, I have this mission in mind that I have to go see birds, I gotta go see bugs, I gotta go see plants. And I like that you said sometimes you just sit there or stand there for 20 minutes. And I think I need to incorporate that more into my experiences in nature, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And actually something that I wanted to mention, one thing that I found that helps me kind of incorporate nature and mindfulness and encourage myself to, get into nature, and kind of, whether it's through any senses like hearing or just going for a walk, what really helps me is also reminding myself that's not only good for us, but also for animals, for any animal lovers out there that have even a dog or a cat at home. Walks with the dog, or even my cat, actually. I open my window just because he loves the sounds of the birds. So it's kind of mindfulness for both of us. So that's something that I also thought of that would be good for not only me, but for my pets as well. Yes, like Derek said as well, having a place where I can get away to mentally. Yeah, for sure.
I also, Stephanie, want to emphasize something that you said that really struck me, is sometimes it won't feel comfortable when you're still getting used to it. So sometimes in the beginning, when you're just taking yourself out for that pause or that mindfulness moment, maybe it will feel uncomfortable that, that beginning 1 to 2 times or 1 to 3 times, but as you stay consistent, and as you stay with it and you stick with it and find something that is suitable to you and your context, and it is available to you, you will find over time that you're seeing the benefits, just from even how you're feeling throughout the day, with your interaction with people, your the comparing the first time that you were mindful or in that place or in that pause moment to the 5th or 4th time that you're doing it, and you find, I'm actually staying longer in this pause, or I'm actually enjoying this, or the reflection that I'm having afterwards is getting deeper every time. So yeah, noticing those little changes and being curious is what we're really encouraging in throughout this workshop, is just be curious about your experience and your surrounding. And over time, you'll naturally rewire your brain towards that curiosity. And that's what just pushes you into that mindfulness, is just being curious in that beginning.
And like Selma said, that was actually kind of something with me for journaling. Now it's something that I do regularly, and I can't even imagine not having it in my life at this point. But at the beginning, it was exactly like that, even kind of sticking with it, giving it a chance instead of, a one-off, let's try this once. If it doesn't work, that's it kind of thing. And also learning, what works for you. You know what I mean? Some people, meditation is, they love it, something that they really enjoy. But it really depends on the person too, seeing what works for you and kind of trying out, kind of writing a bucket list of things to try and see what sticks with you. But yeah, for sure. yeah, so I think that's all from the chat in terms of your reflections or anything you guys took away from everything. So in terms of wrapping up everything that we talked about today and kind of going through our main points for the day, one really important thing that we went through is that mindfulness can be practiced in a variety of different forms. It doesn't really have to stick to one activity or one setting. It's really diverse in that sense. You can go anywhere, you can practice it anywhere, and it can be done by anyone. It's something that we can all practice. It's just something you really have to learn how to channel, whatever form that may be. And channeling mindfulness through nature allows us to connect to ourselves and the world around us. Like Salma and Stephanie were talking about earlier, not only us engaging with nature, but allowing nature to engage with us, which really resonated with me when you guys said that. So that's definitely one major aspect of kind of the integration of mindfulness and nature. And with the warm weather coming, I know, like Stephanie said, nothing's wrong with winter, but at least for me, I prefer summer. But yeah, so I mean, if there's any time to take advantage of the warm weather and getting outside without freezing your ears off, it's definitely now. So especially if it's visiting Riverwood or just taking a walk or through any means or forms, it's definitely the perfect time to take advantage of the weather. Alrighty, and just a final thank you to us at Pptc and Riverwood for you guys all attending and hearing us out on how you can not only engage with nature, but do so with mindfulness in your mind. In terms of upcoming workshops at Pptc, if you guys are interested in hearing more from us in the future, we do have to work on making our calendar a bit more busy like Riverwood. We're getting there, slowly we'll get there. But in terms of what we have in the works right now, more to come, but we are resuming our meditation through art workshops in June, and hopefully we will be able to do that monthly. We have heard really good things from our meditation through art workshops in the past, and it is kind of close to mindfulness and kind of engaging with being present and being aware. So that's definitely something that could really connect to this workshop as well. So that's something to look out for as well from us.
And on that note, if you also have any requests, we are happy to hear more about that. And yeah, we thank you all for coming out. I'll unshare my screen so you can see everyone. And yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie, as well, for your awesome examples and engaging with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Salma, Megan, Stuchi. It was a wonderful presentation, and I can't wait to use some of these tips outdoors this summer. And thank you everyone for joining this evening, and we hope to see you all in person soon again. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
I wish who that Salma was who commented, thank you, what an excellent job.
I know it's a mystery person.
Oh, Juliana, okay.
Oh, that's so funny.
There were so many. I was like, oh my God. It was a guessing game of who's who.
Sorry, I guess I got kicked out. I thought like the whole thing shut down. I was like, oh no. I'm assuming it was just me, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing, like, because it was right at 8 o'clock. So I'm like, did it end? And like it closed the whole
Oh,
thing? That's what
no.
happened to mine. I was like, but then when I logged back on, everything was like normal.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Great job. You guys did an excellent job.
Good job, guys. That was awesome. That was
Yeah,
really
it went
well
really,
done.
really well. I liked it.
And I can't wait to rewatch this again, just share with some family and friends who were able to attend and be like, nature, you should definitely go to Riverwood.
Yes.
Yeah, you might actually, it's still recorded.